every time.
Jeez.
All right, so next thing on the docket would be Gurps. We have Firefly, but that would be any sci-fi or space opera,
Right.
anything in futuristic tech and space, most likely.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, if you enjoy the content we've been doing, please like the video. It helps us out on the algorithm. Second of all, Matt ran a game. Our brother-in-law has been on the show back in November. He ran a game that was really interesting to me. It was kind of a space opera type of thing. In a nutshell, there was we all were humans, but there was another ancient kind of race coming about and kind of coming in, and we didn't really know it. And what we were seeing, though, is it was kind of slowly taking over people, planet by planet. And it was kind of this blackness that would happen, and then everybody would go absolutely insane. And then it kind of had like a Event Horizon type of feel to it. These guys would go insane, or Firefly in terms of like the what were they called? Like I can't remember.
Reavers.
The Reavers, thank you. It had like a Reaver type of feel to it, where, I mean, just everyone went nuts and no one knows what was going on. And it was because this alien substance was coming out, and it would take over your brain. You wouldn't, if you were exposed to it, sometimes you got lucky, but you would lose hours of your time.
And the weirdest
like
thing
sleeper.
with that was the first thing that his was, you always try to like grab the nearest blackest thing you could find to dye your skin with, which was a weird.
Yeah, they alternate. Yeah, exactly. They wanted to be like pitch black. Which was kind of cool. So anyway, all of that to say, this is what you need to do. Like every game, you need to come up with a conflict. So that was his. It was set in space, which was kind of cool. So what he did is he set up kind of, again, I'm going to say like a Shadowrun type of scenario where there were 3 major corps that kind of employed most of humanity at that point. And certain corps owned entire planets because they were the first to settle there, and so that's what they did. So he had, I can't remember who they were. It doesn't really matter who they were. So he set up 3 factions, which is what you would want to do, is set up some factions. And he had an outside faction that no one even knew about, which was these alien things. And then there's elements of horror in his game because there's a certain spot where he had me make a roll. I rolled horribly, and he's like, okay, you wake up 3 hours later. And it's like, did I wake up 3 hours later, or did I lose 3 hours of time?
Yes.
And I didn't know. And I still don't know, honestly. And so what's fun about the whole thing, though, is that we had, like in Firefly, there were like 3 or 4 people we kept seeing over and over again.
And then you guys were traders.
We were trading. We were like, and not like Firefly, we would do odd jobs for money. And so this is really it. When you think about a space opera, you have the option of doing like a Star Wars, which is like the shirt I'm wearing right now, or you could do a Star Trek, which is almost the other opposite extreme, where you have like a huge, the worlds have all kind of gathered in a federation of planets, and the people that are fighting against her is a group of people that have refused to join your little clique, basically.
Yes.
You know, so you have that. Or you could do Firefly, which is, there's inner worlds that are kind of the Federation. There's these outer worlds that are kind of Wild Westy. You could do...
which is kind of a Star Wars feel, too, because they have those rim worlds as well.
Yeah. Except that you're hardly ever on some of the... I mean, it's so weird. You bounce around from world to world. Star Wars is more of a space opera because you're following like 1 or 3 people.
Which is why the Mandalorian helps, because you're actually spending time on
different
those
planets a lot. Yes. Yep. And Mandalorian's a great example because you, without ruining anything about The Mandalorian, highly recommend The Mandalorian if you're like episodes 4, 5, and 6 Star Wars fan, and you may have been like, I'm done, they burned me, but seriously, Mandalorian is what you want to go watch if you're in that category like I am. So, and Rogue One, that's it. Just watch the first 3 films, 4, 5, and 6, Rogue One and The Mandalorian, and then go ahead and pick up some of the Clone Wars.
Yeah. Especially Gendy's.
Yeah, we want to talk about all that. But my point is, here's the fun part about this. So, like, you need to figure out, like, are we playing in, are my people officers in the biggest company, the biggest government in the world? Or are my people out in the fringes of space just trying to survive? Are my people, like, what are your players actually doing? This is where Lexicon can help. If you haven't heard us talk about Lexicon, it's actually, I think, like our first episode ever, but
it's one of the earlier ones.
You can look it up. But Lexicon really simply is just a game. If you go to our website, if you go to the resources page, just go to skullrpg.com/resources. you will be able to look up all the rules for lexicon. So I won't cover it here, but you can do a lexicon with your players beforehand to find out what kind of space adventure they want to play in. And that'll help you set your tone for when you're building your game out. And you'll know, like, okay, we're doing a Star Trek game, we're doing a Star Wars game, we're doing a Firefly game, we're doing a Event Horizon, heaven forbid, game. And so, we're doing a Pitch Black with Van Diesel. I think that's his name. No, who was that? Oh, anyway.
Can't
Riddick.
help you there.
Chronicles of Riddick. You're doing a Riddick game,
okay.
right? With a small band of people. Anyway, the point is, each one of these cool things the nice thing about Sci-Fi is, since it's so far out, you can literally change it up and do whatever you want. The reason why I think it's really good for GURPS is, again, you don't need a monster manual.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the less you need a monster manual, the more I think you should be moving away from Dungeons and Dragons and a Pathfinder.
Yes.
And you should be moving into something like a GURPS or Knights Black Agents or any number of games that you want to play. So the nice thing with GURPS on this is you can deal with aliens if you want to have aliens. If you want to just have human beings, then just have the human beings. And for the most part now, you don't need, like, you're going to substitute certain skills, and they have them anyway already there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to pick up sword skills unless it's weird. Like you got lightsabers or something.
I was going to say, for a lightsaber, you could argue that swordsmanship helps.
Sword, you probably have a lightsaber skill. I think there might be something in there about that. Anyway, point is, you pick up the skills that make the most sense, and then you run with it. So the real key here is obviously figure out the conflict, figure out the storyline, because that'll figure out what your players are actually doing. So since I was kind of Captain Kirk on a smuggling, I was really Mal out of Firefly. I was Mal. I had 2 or 3 people on the crew. We were just running, rutabagas from one end of the solar system to the other. That's a nod to the people that have listened to Ken and Robbins talk about stuff. Regardless, we were just running stuff for money and money for stuff. And we end up getting caught up in this huge thing because we come across an area of space where there's a bunch of ships that are all destroyed.
Yep.
And as we go to investigate, we then end up finding this black substance.
Finding this stuff, and
potentially get infected by it.
We eventually went down into the planet. We found a couple people who were holding out against these things because they became zombie-like after they got hit. So we rescued, and then we barely got out.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's all these fun things where that's the cool part about space is almost anything is possible, right? And so what I like about it too is, again, like if you haven't listened to our political one, it's the same thing. If you're only going to be dealing with maybe 7 people, I would only write up the 7 things for those people that matter. Like, and I don't mean 7 things per person. I just mean if this is the guy I go to find out information, then obviously they have a ton of points in knowledge, whatever that means, whatever their knowledges are, and contacts and then if this is my guy who, he makes weapons, then obviously they have a ton of crafting points.
Yeah.
And if this is and I might grab some templates online if I can find them or create my own for, here's what a grunt, like here's my grunt stormtrooper, whatever they're called in your world. Here's my grunt guard. Here's my, my captain of the guard, and just those basic stats. So if I do have to come across and do some fighting against them, as we're like pulling a Han Solo and we're running toward the Millennium Falcon and shooting the stormtroopers, I know I have the skills for the stormtroopers.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So, but I don't have everybody's name. I don't have everybody's health points. I don't really care.
Honestly, having some of that generic helps. So, like in the Firefly thing that we played,
right?
We always had random people giving us the contacts, the jobs.
Yes.
Each one of them is going to have some sort of skill in how to haggle to get the fare, because
and
that's how everything is.
But you could come up with that on the fly, or you could just roll like, straightforward 15. That's their job.
Yeah.
They have a straight 15 in it. It's fine. I don't care how many points. I don't care that they have, whatever, that they have, that they spent 40 points to build up one of their other stats that they could get. No one cares. Because no one's going to see it but you, and do you really need it? And the answer is probably not. And if they come up and do something weird that you never thought of, just ask yourself, would this person have invested time and energy in that? And if the answer is it's tangential to their work, the answer is they probably would have done some points toward it.
Yeah.
So maybe you take off. So if they're like their really good one is like a 16, the stuff they use kind of most every day is like at a 15. These weird ones that don't come up much might be a 12. And you're done. Like, you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, like who cares? You just move on with life, and then you can start playing GURPS faster. I think that's the biggest complaint I have about GURPS is it doesn't have a monster manual. But how would you even create one?
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, I'm doing Star Wars. Oh crap, there are thousands of alien races that all look different, that all have different abilities. Like, how do I even scope Yoda? How do I scope the Wampas on Hoth? I mean, how do
Yeah.
I even fathom this stuff?
Yeah,
You
GURPS.
can't. You can't.
GURPS is
So,
great because of the generic part of it, but if you're
and
trying to do the
right,
specifics of it, it's hard.
right,
So learning how to, okay, so if I'm doing this character, I only care about these 3 skills
exactly.
and these 4 stats.
Yeah.
I create those. I don't
Yep.
worry about the rest.
So then you look at it like you need a guard. Okay, I need to know they have some hit points, they have some armor, assuming that armor means anything.
They have
I
some
mean,
sort of weapon.
apparently armor means nothing against blasters and lightsabers. So at which point, why even have it? I mean, no, seriously, like it just seems like it's just like it just here's 50 pounds of weight that does literally zero for you.
Do you want the
I
in
mean,
canon explanation, or do you want
no,
the?
I don't even care. I'm sure there's anyway. It makes zero sense, is what I'm trying to say. So if it makes zero sense in your campaign to give people like if it's one hit kills with a blaster, there probably is an armor that's going to stop that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless we're talking about Beskar, right? Okay. Anyway, Mandalorian fans unite. Anyway, so that said, the whole point of this is do it where it makes sense. So give those guys some hit points that make sense. Give them literally just enough skills that they can fight your guys. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to have negotiation skills. They're not going to have, and if they do, if they somehow need negotiation skills, have one guy step forward, kind of like think about like the police, right? There's the police negotiator who's trained in that. There's the police profiler who's trained in that. There's the SWAT team who's a little bit more bulky if you're doing some stuff you shouldn't be doing, right? Go rob a bank, SWAT will show up. Hold hostages, SWAT will show up. That sort of thing. Have a traffic stop, SWAT's not showing up for a traffic stop. Nope. Doesn't matter. So think of it like that. Think of these guys like, am I fighting the level 1 grunts who just finished academy? Or am I fighting like because my reputation is so good, right? They've sent the SWAT team in for whatever that is for this world to take me out. Or have I ticked off so many people that now I'm fighting assassins and hitmen, right? Because I've ticked off this one company or this one guy so many times that he's like, you know what? It's worth like whatever, 100,000 creds for me to end that guy's life. And now you have an assassin or a group of assassins coming after you. And it could just literally be like, so who are we rolling up here? So we're rolling up the police officer, the SWAT team, maybe the captain of the entire guard, right? Mm-hmm. And we're rolling up an assassin.
Yeah.
And we're rolling up enough stats to do hit points and really just kind of what it takes to fire and what their damage reduction might be. That's it.
Skills and hit points and damage. That's it.
And not even full skills.
No.
Just enough skills to fight.
Yep.
Right? And then if they need another skill, like, oh, they're going to negotiate with you. Well, that guy just happens to have a 15 in negotiation.
Yeah, you can roll it up on the fly.
Who cares?
The advantage with GURPS as well is you have your core attributes and everything is at penalties if you don't have the skill. So it's like,
right, you can do anything.
That guy's not the head negotiator. He does have a 16 in intelligence. So he can. Now it's -4, so he has a 12.
Yeah,
which is pretty fair.
I'm impressive for that much intelligence, but yeah. Or he has average intelligence and he can do it at a 6. And he might roll a 4. You never know. It might be, probably won't. He'll probably stumble and tell you that, something bad about your mother and trying to get you to disarm. But, I mean, whatever. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. So at that point, that's the fun part about this. So I would say, just like almost any other GURPS thing, know where you're going and just roll up enough characters that you feel like you can run a whole game with it. And like I said, to roll up a character, we're not talking the whole sheet. We're just talking enough stats that make sense for the character you're playing.
Yes.
And that's it. So if you like this content, please give us a like. Really helps out the channel. And we'll see you next time.